All right, all right, all right. Here we are. I am your good, close personal friend, Hank Pattison, and this is The Life of the Mind, my little pop culture podcast. At some point, I really hope to get some guests on this thing. I've just been a little too lazy to set up time periods with my friends to talk with them about interesting topics, but, I'm sure there are friends that I have out there, and I'm sure they have interesting thoughts about interesting things, and, maybe someday. But for today, you're just dealing with me, as always. It's a classic episode of The Life of the Mind, with one little exception. I have far less planned out for what I'm actually going to be talking about today. I don't think it's going to be... Well, here we go. This is what's on my mind. I actually did have some thoughts about what I was going to be talking about. And this morning, I started today off by watching an episode of one of my... I guess for me, this counts as a guilty pleasure. I guess guilty pleasure, that's such a lame thing to call a thing. I don't feel guilt about it. It's like a bag of Doritos. I know what it is as I'm eating it. I was watching Ancient Aliens today, and I was thinking about that concept, the concept that we are not from this planet, that the idea that humans evolved on this planet is a fallacy, and in fact, what we are, in contrast to maybe everything else that lives here, is something from the stars. And okay, let's say right off the bat, if you're listening to this podcast, I feel like I should play my cards out real quick and just say, that's crazy talk. One of my favorite things about ancient alien theory is that it's all crazy talk. I almost literally heard somebody say in a recent episode, and this was just my favorite thing to hear a person say, ostensibly, basically, a person said, hey, I'm not saying aliens built the pyramids. That would be crazy. I'm saying aliens helped humans build the pyramids. That's the kind of mentality that we're looking at here. That's the sort of people we're talking about. I, like many good weirdos, was obsessed with aliens when I was a kid. I read every book that my stupid grade school library carried about paranormal or unknown or unexplained things. I went through a real Loch Ness Monster phase. I know one year I did a science report on Bigfoot. I don't know. I just liked all that stuff. And aliens. Aliens were a really big thing. I would seek out movies that had realistic depictions of alien abductions. I know there was one movie, I want to say it was called Fire in the Sky. And it was all about, it was a horrific real-world version of alien abduction. I'm really surprised people don't make more movies like that, except I guess there's only... I don't know. It always feels like there's two ways that people make sci-fi or alien movies. Like, it's either... what was that one? Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where basically it's... The entire movie is, do you believe in aliens? And then in the last 2 minutes of the movie, an alien shows up, or a person gets abducted, or something like that. And I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a waste of a movie, because a movie is fiction. So playing the what if game inherently isn't super interesting. Like, of course movies exist, or aliens exist. It's a movie. Like, aliens have existed in movies for years. So, I don't know, the thing where you just hold off and show them at the end, I always feel a little... I think there was a new Frankenstein movie recently that just came out. Victor Frankenstein, it might be called. I know Max Landis wrote it. I'm a big Max Landis fan. But I don't know if I'm going to rush out and see this thing. Where basically, like, they make Frankenstein right at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert. You know Victor. The only reason you know who Victor Frankenstein is because he made a monster. So I don't think it's a spoiling. Like, spoiler alert. The Invisible Man is invisible. Like, shut up. But, you know, if you went to go see The Invisible Man or you turned invisible in the last 2 minutes of the movie, you might be a little like, what the fuck did I just sit through? And, yeah. And the other side of alien movies is aliens are just there all the time. It seems really hard for people to find a middle ground, you know? I'm very interested in movies like, I believe there was Contact with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey based on the book by Carl Sagan. That was a really interesting concept, and I like what it philosophically did. It really projected the concept of aliens as being capable of speaking to us in languages and symbols that we would be able to understand. But there's always too little of it. That's my problem. They either go one way or the other with it. There's either a whole bunch of these things and they're super mundane, or there's one of these things and it's super special. And I don't know, I guess it's hard to make a movie about something special the whole time. I would be interested in seeing that. I remember, now this is the portion that I was going to say there's not going to be a review in this episode, but then I realized that I did want to talk a little bit about one of my... There's a weird little hiccup in the sound there because the mailman came up the steps and I got all freaked out. So there you go. That's real life sneaking in for a second there. Prometheus is one of my... it's one of the few movies that I've seen in theater as an adult. I'm not really big on the theatrical experience. I really like to be able to focus on a movie when I'm watching it, and I've unfortunately just had a small handful of bad experiences in movie theaters where other people have acted as a distraction from my enjoyment of the movie, and it really pisses me off because I'm also a cheapskate, so to convince me to spend, what the fuck it is now, like $12 to go see a movie? $12? I remember when it was $6. Sort of. I sort of remember stuff. So I went out to go see Prometheus. I think I was going out because it was a Ridley Scott film. And I mean, come on, he's the dude who did Alien and Blade Runner. That dude has cinematic credibility with me. So I went to go see Prometheus. And, well, here's my thing. I thought Prometheus, like... I think when I walked out of the theater, if you had just stopped me and said, what do you think about this movie? I very quickly would have been dismissive of it. And I think I had this movie was a piece of shit feeling for a long time. And then I remember, I forget if I know I went to the theater to see Joss Whedon's Marvel's Avengers, the first one. And that's one where if you'd asked me just as I walked out of the theater, what did you think about that movie? I would have said, hey, that was a great movie. But then some time went by, and I kept talking about Prometheus. I kept talking about what was wrong with it, or what was mishandled, or certain ideas that they'd come close to asking and then walked away from. And I never talked about Avengers. I realized that. I didn't have anything to say about it. I didn't have any, it was just such a, like, why would I tell you about the bologna and mayonnaise sandwich I had last night? Like, it was a sandwich. Do you know what bologna, mayonnaise, and white bread tastes like? Yeah, that's what my sandwich was tasted like. He card read good. Just for the sake of argument, I did not have a bologna sandwich last night. I don't want you thinking that that's my life. Just eating mayonnaise and bologna on plain white bread. Please, someone rescue me from this existence. No, I had chicken curry. It was great. What was I saying? I was talking about Prometheus, and I was talking about how I like to keep talking about Prometheus because it was damn interesting. It was a failed movie that was more interesting than the successful movie that the Avengers was. So that kind of got stuck in me for a while. I realized that part of it is that Prometheus really wanted to deal with the concept of ancient aliens. Prometheus suggests, I think, all right, I guess spoilers for Prometheus throughout the rest of what I'm going to be saying. There's a vagina monster and it eats people. There, spoiled. Ha, now you don't have to see the movie. No, what I'm going to say probably won't make a lot of sense if you haven't seen it, because I don't care about putting things in context. I just like to kind of ramblingly have these tirades about fiction. It is... I know a bunch of stuff about Prometheus. I've watched the movie a couple of times. I've watched the deleted scenes. I've read a shit ton of interviews previous and after it was released, previous to it being released and post it being released, whatever, you know what I mean. Specifically with the director, Ridley Scott. And I've watched a lot of analysis videos on it as well, from simple reviewers to passionate fans to slightly more academic studies of it. So I feel like I know a little bit about Prometheus. I know some interesting stuff about it. I know, like, okay, so what are they saying? They're saying that the engineers created life on Earth and we are unto them. We're like something they genetically created, and it's partially from their own makeup. So they do have kind of a love for us, like a father for its child. But at the same time, it is like Frankenstein creating the monster, where he's so proud of his creation, but it also disappoints him, and a part of him wants to destroy it and remake it. I don't know if kids, does anybody out there with kids ever feel that way? Do you ever look at your kid and you're just like, all of a sudden you feel like a crazy mad scientist that maybe has like an Eastern European accent or something? You're like, I must destroy this and start again. Well, was that my Eastern European accent? I don't think I was invested in that. Anywho, so, and I know one of my favorite things about Prometheus is not in the movie. I think Ridley Scott talked about putting in the movie, and people said, you know, sensibly, that's a crazy person's idea. You can't put that in the movie. But it is a real part of the continuity to Ridley Scott. That part of the reason the engineers who created us now want to destroy us with the Xenomorphs from the movie Alien and Aliens and Alien 3 and Alien 4, but mainly Alien and Aliens, is because we killed Jesus. That's a real thing in Ridley Scott's mind that, well, it's a real thing in the story in his mind of the story of Prometheus and Alien and the continuity between them, that Jesus was he manifested more of the true spirit of what the engineers were, and we killed him. And that's when the engineers were like, oh, well, fuck that. We're going to send them a bunch of fucking chest bursters and destroy that planet, which is sort of such an awesome version of the rapture. Like, yeah, did a whole bunch of people rise up into the sky and now they're in heaven? It's like, no, weird alien eggs rained down on the earth, and then facehuggers ate half of us, and then things exploded out of our bellies. They ate the other half of us, and now the world is a barren wasteland of this horrible hive. What do you think they do? What do you think the aliens... What do you think that species' master plan is? Because I feel like with the way they're created, I would be interested to... This idea is so stupid. I would be interested to talk to some people about the math. Like, I've heard the math about, like, how fast a zombie plague could potentially spread if certain population density areas were hit, that kind of a thing. And, like, I think there's a bit of a tipping point where it's sort of like a pyramid scheme where one zombie bites 3 people, then those 3 people are zombies, and then each one of those zombies bites 3 people, so now there's 9 zombies, and then each one of those... Wait, is it 9? It grows exponentially. Anyways, so I feel like the aliens would have something of that. They would have that sort of exponential, like, there's an egg. The egg infects people. The egg becomes a queen. The queen lays more eggs. The more eggs infect more people. Then more queens are born. And then blah, 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 blah. But who knows? Like, maybe queens are super rare. Maybe that doesn't really happen very often. Maybe, like, aliens don't actually have a reproductive cycle that would allow them to dominate the biosphere, and we would always be at a sort of begrudging, like, yeah, we've killed off a bunch of them, but you can never really get all of them. They're always sneaking around out there being gross xenomorphic things. Of course, one of the coolest things about xenomorphs on Earth is the idea that xenomorphs change shape depending on the host bodies. So, I mean, I think we all want to see, like, an almost Ninja Turtle version of this, where there's like, oh man, you want to see like 30 of those things get loose in a zoo. I wonder if somebody's already pitched this, if some like Coke High executive has already said of like, and then they get into the zoo, and then there's a rhino xenomorph, and then there's a giraffe xenomorph, and there's a zebra xenomorph, there's all stripes, and there's a tiger xenomorph, which is the most deadly xenomorph of all. Because obviously, I mean, holy shit, man, if you could get a xenomorph to hatch out of a fucking tiger, I have to assume that would be one of the most badass creatures on the base of this planet. On the base of this planet. On the face of this planet. Now I want to have an argument with somebody, or some sort of... I need to artificially generate a conversation so I can win the conversation, because conversations are battles for points, and if you make more points, then you get all the points, and then you win, and you're like, bah! And that's what, that's how you dominate a friendship. Such an asshole. But I do want to be able to bring that up in a conversation of like, yeah, that's pretty badass. But it's not as badass as a xenomorph that hatched out of the belly of a tiger. Now I want to have a, could a tiger xenomorph defeat Superman? Because I remember Aliens versus Superman, and like, I felt like there was a bit where their blood was actually a little harmful to him, but maybe I'm making that up. Maybe Superman is totally xenomorph proof. Man, if a xenomorph hatched out of Kryptonian, like, oh my god, like, you would need all of the Green Lanterns to come and defeat a creature like that. Actually, just to be a total hyper nerd, even as I said that, part of my brain was like, well, actually, if Green Lantern really wanted to kill an alien xenomorph, it wouldn't really be that difficult. I mean, first off, with his Green Lantern ring, every single fight that Green Lantern gets in should just be Green Lantern encases a guy in a green ball, like, fight over at that point, followed by Green Lantern flies up to the moon and basically says, okay, we're done fighting, or I take you out of the ball and you die. And like, I suppose there's 8 or 9 people who can survive in the cold, harsh of outer space. The alien, the xenomorph, I do not believe can, because Ridley killed one. She killed a couple of them kicking them out of the airlock. And I mean, I don't know, it would be sort of less impressive if they were just out there like, oh, I guess in space. No one can hear you scream. So it would sound like, and that would be kind of less impressive, I guess. What am I thinking about? I was thinking about how... Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so if Green Lantern... I'm going to say Green Lantern's allowed to kill, because Green Lantern is a space cop, and cops kill. I mean, that's if there's one thing that the records of Ice-T have taught me over the years, it's kill cop. No, anyways... I remember thinking this for the first time when I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13, maybe even a little older than that, maybe 14, where I just had to like, man, if some dude is just like, I'm going to kill all these people, or like, I'm a wild animal and I just kill, and Green Lantern has to defeat this thing, like, as long as it has an orifice in its body, Green Lantern can fuck it up terribly. Like, again, if I were Green Lantern, every single one of my fights would just be, I would land, I would shoot Green Lantern energy down the throat, or conversely up the ass, just basically in through the digestive or what am I trying to think of here? What is your breathing apparatus called? Your respiratory system, into your respiratory and digestive system. Like if a creature has like any kind of a like mouth, if it is an orifice for breathing and taking in food, you can just fucking shoot your Green Lantern energy, and then you could fill them up from inside. And then you'd be like, well, either I extend the energy and I explode you, or I just smash you into everything because now you're like this weird fucking meat puppet that I'm wearing on the end of my ring. All of my my Green Lantern stuff, there's a lot of weird, inherent, like strange, violent sexuality to this conversation. I mean, maybe that started with the Xenomorphs, which are all about like penetrating and HR geeker stuff and cool shit like that. But I could definitely imagine that the who are those dudes? The Guardians of Oa? I can't remember who Green Lantern's bosses are. I want to call them the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I know that's not right. I know they're those weird blue dudes with the big heads, and there's only one female. So they're Smurfs. The Green Lantern Corps is operated by the Smurfs. Let's not dick around here. But yes, anyways, I think they would be quite upset with the way that I lanterned if they gave me the Green Lantern ring. Like, you can't just blow apart things' digestive systems with the ring. It's like, I'm pretty sure I can. And I don't really see how that's any different than forming a giant boxing glove and hitting a dude in the face. Like, I just reached inside of his body and punctured his lung. And then I threatened to remove his liver as I squeezed it in the energy mitt. And then the fight was over. Like, that's a good use of a Green Lantern ring. Never understood Green Lantern. He's too powerful, man. It's I forget if I stole this from Warren Ellis or Grant Morrison. I feel like somebody drew the comparison to saying that the Green Lantern ring, it's effectively a spin on the Aladdin and the lamp myth. It's the, like in the way that all of these comic book characters are archetypal forms being modernized or updated in different ways, that's what the Green Lantern ring is. It's a genie that can do whatever you can imagine it can do. And then as long as you can hold your focus on that thing, you can do that thing. So, yeah. Which, I don't know. I Green Lantern's not really my dude. Yeah, no, he's a dude. He's green and he's a lantern. He's one of those comic characters that I don't think really deserves to be around anymore, but I feel like it's one of those things where like a handful of marketing guys randomly chose him and now he's here forever. Like, he was in that Justice League cartoon that was out back in the 70s, and because of that, he's always going to be remembered as this classic character. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's characters you discover from the past who aren't popular today, and you're like, wow, people are insane. Like, this character is awesome and should be around. And conversely, there's a bunch of characters where it's like, man, this dude should have been forgotten. Like, this Green Lantern thing, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like we'd be better off with Slam Bradley, a lesser-known DC character. He was just some detective or something, though. Hey, maybe a lot of people, I know a lot of people really respond to Green Lantern. I've spoken to Green Lantern fans. They love that shit. They get something out of it. Whatever, man. DC Comics. This was me. All of this came from my saying, could Green Lantern defeat a xenomorph that hatched out of a tiger? And, like, obviously the answer is yes. I have no question about that whatsoever. Could the Flash? Maybe. I mean, once again, like, the Flash, if you're going all out, like, if I remember correctly, like, he could just vibrate through shit and move faster than anybody can see. So if you ever, like, approach the Flash from sort of a homicidal standpoint of just like, no, we're going full all out, like, no questions of morality, no like, well, Barry Allen or Wally West would think blah blah blah, or they would try to do this, and you'd be like, no, if you just had a character with these attributes and a character with these attributes, who would fuck the other one up? The answer is always going to be the Flash. I believe he can vibrate his molecules through things and fuck with them through that. For a while, he would make things explode if he did it, or maybe that was impulse. But anyways, I'm just saying they unlocked that capability. So, like, immediately you have a, like, oh, well, I guess if the Flash has the ability to rip people's brains out of their skulls faster than the neurons in your brain can fire, he wins every fight. Like, done. Like, not even Professor X could defeat something like that. What a fucking statement to have coming out of my mouth. I say shit like that all the time. It's no big surprise. But yeah, Professor X could defeat anybody who can't move super fast, and of course doesn't have some sort of shielding. I always wondered if that was part of the Wolverine thing, was that the adamantium in his skull is part of what keeps Professor X from getting into it. I never really thought about this much before, but like, well, I guess I can create a thing for this even as I'm saying it, that like, I know people have sort of discussed how does Magneto's helmet keep Xavier out if it's got all those openings in it? Like, it's not a tinfoil hat. Like, you can't just cover the top of your brain and just be like, that's it. No psychic could ever get in. But I like to imagine that Magneto is using his magnetic powers within the helmet to create a magnetic field that blocks his brain, that it's the two things interacting together, that you couldn't just put on Magneto's helmet and be safe from Xavier's mind powers. You would have to have Magneto's powers and Magneto's understanding of how to use his powers, which come from his unique friendship and special bond with Professor Xavier. Okay, I like the idea that that Xavier built Magneto's helmet because Xavier was concerned that he might go evil someday. And at one point when they were young men, he was like, dude, like, I've built this helmet. It's the one thing I think with your ability to control magnetic fields, I think the two of us, we can train you to use this helmet to keep me out of your mind. And that way, if I ever go evil or start doing weird stuff, you'll be safe from me and you can take me down. And then as it turns out, it's like, oh, Magneto's the one who turned out to be an evil, murdering dickwad. A lot of people try to be cool with Magneto and fucking leave out the fact that he's a murdering terrorist. They do that in comics all the time, though. It really concerns me every once in a while, where there's this ongoing thing about, like, oh, this character used to be a villain and did all these villainous things, but now the Avengers have taken him on their team. It's like, well, you still need to go to jail, dude. Like, you don't just get to be of like, and now I'm a good guy. Like, you robbed a bank, you shot an arrow into that dude, or you lit a thing on fire, or you murdered a bunch of fucking people. Like, superheroes murder people super casually, especially throughout the 80s and 90s. Like, you just get a lot of that shit where, like, I need to break into this evil warehouse or fortress or something. So, like they'll be like, Feral, take out those guards. And then you'll just kind of see one of the characters kind of moves, and then they move past it. And it's like, I don't think they knock those dudes out. I don't think that's a thing that happens. I think, like, somebody just ripped those guys' throats out. And that's cool. Like, they're bad guys and whatever. But, like, that wasn't self-defense, and you should go to jail. I know I'm getting lost in some really weird technicalities here, but I think this especially came up because the trailer for Marvel's Captain America 3 : hyper civil war thing. They don't call it Captain America 3. Marvel does not use numbers in their movies, except for Iron Man. Go figure. Anyway, Captain America's all like, oh no, Bucky, he's my best friend, and Bucky's being arrested, and I'm super sad. I was like, yeah, Bucky killed a lot of people, man. Like, even just in the last movie alone, like, he was throwing grenades and trying to sniper Samuel Jackson in the middle of the street. Like, a whole bunch of people probably died in car accidents around that. Like, there's so many, like he's a murderer. Like, I'm really glad he's Captain America's best friend, and I hope that they can, like, hang out in prison. But this idea that they can just be like, oh, well, he was under mental control. Like, bitch, I was drunk. I still need to go to jail. Like, where did that come from? That sounded like I was trying to do a movie line or something. I'm watching some Dave Chappelle. No, like, if I'm drunk and I get in a car accident, I don't get to just say, like, I was under the influence of alcohol, therefore I shouldn't have to go to jail. I think I go to jail for a super long time. So, I mean, this whole of like, oh, I was under mental control from someone else. I totally wasn't a murdering asshole. I was doing it under. It's like, I don't care, dude. Like even if you're not going to jail, you're going to therapy for the rest of your life, and it's probably not good for you to be out and around people. So when Captain America's all like, oh my god, my buddy Bucky, like they're just gonna kill him or they're just gonna lock him up. Like, yeah, well, that's what happens, dude. You murder a bunch of people and then you get arrested and then you go to jail. Like, I don't see how your best friend should be any exempt for that. That's just me harping on Civil War. You know what? I'm sure the writers will find a way around that. I'm sure they won't just be douchebags. I'm sure I'm the one who's being an asshole here, and I'm just having fun with it. I just like to harp about the hilarious technicalities of bringing superheroics into the real world. It is a fascination of mine. And I love how it doesn't work very well. Something I think the early Spider-Man comics understood that modern Spider-Man comics do not understand. I'm talking about like the early Stan Lee, Steve Ditko comics. Like, back in the day, Spider-Man was creepy, and I always see this in bold and italicized and in quotation marks, but in the real world, Spider-Man would be creepy as shit. Like, Spider-Man would not be a heroic dude who you were ever happy to see. Spider-Man would be weird. People wearing those kind of suits, like, I think you've got, like, in Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the Green Man suit, which you see all over the place now. Those sort of, like, skin-tight one-piece leotards that cover the face with a mask as well. Like, it's so creepy when you see somebody walking around in one of those, let alone, like, if they were super skinny and the outfit was super tight and they were super agile. Like, every part of watching Spider-Man move would just be like watching a contortionist fuck themselves. Like, you would, and then the fact that he does, like, scurry like a giant spider up the sides of things, like, it would be horrifying and sickening. And I think that's the point of Spider-Man. Not that he's a horrifying or sickening guy. Like, he's just being Spider-Man. He's doing the best he can. And unfortunately, due to his bizarre fucking power and the way that people's brains work, he looks creepy as fuck. He never looks creepy as fuck in the movies. I think they're, in fact, scared of making him look creepy as fuck, so they lean away from it, and they try to make him look more, like, cartoonish and fun or whatever, and it kind of, like, moves away from the idea that somebody moving at those speeds, scurrying around the sides of walls and up over top of roofs, like, you would lose your lunch at stuff like that. It would be like something out of a Cronenberg horror movie, which I am always all for. And, you know, as Josh Trank thought about the Fantastic Four, like, I think early Marvel superheroes, back when Stan Lee was still writing stuff, has much more a texture of sci-fi horror, which, unfortunately, to me, has been lost over the past 30 or 40 years. It's slowly tapered away as superhero became a more dominant genre. I think that's something DC Comics was doing originally. I think Superman and Batman, Green Lantern, Flash, all those dudes, they were the superhero genre. Superman toys with being a sci-fi series, and Batman eventually has become a sort of horror crime noir series in some cases. But unfortunately, for my personal tastes, I wish that Marvel had retained more of that creepy, real-world sci-fi texture that I think the early stories have. Despite them being so, like, cartoony and hilarious and unrealistic, and people talking like Stan Lee in these crazy alliterations, at the same time, I feel like there's a lot more of a people are horrified by things, or people are outraged, or people are shocked. Whereas now, people in superhero comics know superhero comics. They understand their reality, and things are just what they're. Hey, it's Captain America. What a cool guy. Blah 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 blah. That's my impression of a background character in a Marvel comic. I don't know. I felt like I still had more I wanted to say about Prometheus, but I really got off track thinking about what heroes or villains could defeat a xenomorph in various stages. Well, obviously Superman could. I'm going to say Batman can, because that's just how I roll. I believe Batman can defeat things. Luke Cage could, because his skin wouldn't be able to be cut. I would say that Luke Cage's skin would not be able to be burnt by alien blood. It probably wouldn't feel good, but he wouldn't actually take so much damage from it that it would affect the outcome of the battle, and he would beat those things to fucking death. It would probably his hands would still be stinging afterwards, and you'd do some, after he beat it to death, you'd have some panel of him, shaking off his fist going, "Ee, ouch, that hurts." That's my impression of somebody who has impenetrable skin getting it burnt by xenomorphic acidic blood. Ouch, I said. That's, I think you can imagine it would be 3 E's -OUCH. Ouch. And then the word balloon would be all spiky instead of curved like a normal word balloon. Iron Fist, probably not. Because that you would get into that thing of the Iron Fist would be capable. Iron Fist's Iron Fist. There's a apostrophe and an S in there somewhere. Oh God, what if he had 2 of them? Iron Fists. Would be capable of penetrating the xenomorph's outer shell, carapace, or whatever you want to call that. But then his hands would get melted off by the acid because Danny Rand is just a normal dude. So there we go. Who else? Who else is out there? Who else could defeat or be defeated by Aquaman? Pass. No, Aquaman. I honestly am not really sure. His power levels really kind of vary. Every once in a while, he's almost as strong as Superman. But man, I don't know. I kind of don't want to give it to Aquaman. I kind of want to say that he would not be able to defeat a xenomorph. I'm not one of those dudes who fucking hates on Aquaman. I don't. Everybody's, Aquaman's so stupid. Again, you just heard me going off. Green Lantern's stupid. The Flash is stupid. Namor's stupid. Comic books are stupid. There's no. Aquaman doesn't have to be dumb. And, I think maybe the new movie will attempt to deal with that, but, we'll cross that fish when we come to it. In the meantime, Captain America obviously would not. He's a normal dude who does a lot of push-ups. A xenomorph would fuck him up. There'd be no story there. I kind of want to say the same thing for Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man, but no, he's not going to do it. Wolverine, yes, with the adamantium. No, with the bone claws. Colossus, yes. Nightcrawler, no. Cyclops, no. Jean Grey, yes. White Queen, no. This is what a fucking bizarre list I am working through. I'm not even giving explanations for this now. I'm just listing abstract names of characters followed by yes or no. Could they defeat a xenomorph? I'm going to bring this in with could they defeat a predator, but honestly, I'm going to say 90% of comic book characters could defeat a predator. Predators are just... If you're a superhero and you've ever defeated 3 armed thugs who are super ripped and on PCP, which apparently in comic books happens all the time, then you can defeat a fucking predator. They're not that. They're big and strong, but I mean, they're not superhero strong. So I mean, yeah, so Predators are cool, don't get me wrong. It's a great fucking movie, and the concept of them, that's all cool. I think, yeah, I'm fine with that. But I'm just saying, xenomorphs, they're highly more powerful. And yet, in a one-on-one fight, I will take the Predator. A Predator could defeat a Xenomorph. That's because a Predator understands what a Xenomorph is and will understand how to hunt it and track it. whereas most superheroes I do not think would have that capability. This is so weird. Obviously I didn't plan to talk about this, and yet my brain is just getting all wrapped up in it. Who else? Who else could defeat and not defeat things? Giant Man. Oh, can you imagine Giant Man? I love to imagine that he would, like, you would wind up with, like, a face hugger would get inside him, and then he would go all huge, and then a giant chest burster would come out, and you would wind up with a Xenomorph who was literally 80 feet tall, just Godzilla. Fuck, that's a great idea. Somebody do a crossover and then have it fight Godzilla. That's a 3-way fucking crossover. Marvel Comics versus Xenomorphs versus Godzilla. Fucking give me money. Give me a Hollywood movie. Who else? Who else is out there in these fucking universes? Thor. Thor could defeat a Xenomorph, as much as I fucking hate Thor, or like I just hate characters where I don't understand their power sets because I don't understand what a god is supposed to be. Hulk. That's another really tricky one. It's tricky to me because Hulk is still inherently a biological organism with a lot of frailties. So I don't know how I feel about, like, it's another one where I can imagine he would get a face hugger and like some sort of intestinal parasite type thing. Like that is something that could hardcore fuck up the Hulk in my way of thinking about things. And then you would have a chest burster burst out of him. Possibly then the Hulk would then heal and he would have to battle a Hulk hybrid version of himself. And that thing would fucking kill him. Though theoretically you get into that thing where Hulk doesn't really have limits to his powers, or I like to imagine that he absorbed all that gamma radiation and he's slowly letting it off when he's Hulk, but it's one of those things where like he could be maxed out for like 400 years and still only have tapped a small fraction of the amount of energy that he has inside of himself. So like Hulk is strongest. And like the Xenomorph blood would burn him, but then he would heal back from it super fast, like Wolverine does. So I don't know. Hulk is kind of a tricky one for that. I guess I'm giving it to Hulk that he would, technically win. See, with Thor, I don't think like Xenomorphs would be able. I keep hearing myself saying these things out loud, and a part of me is like, you sound like a crazy person. I had a bunch of other characters. I was thinking the Fantastic Four. Okay, the Thing I'm going to say could, except his total vulnerability would be his eyes. I feel like eventually he would get, like, he could kill a lot of Xenomorphs, but eventually he would get some alien blood in his eyes and he would go blind. And then he would be fucked. For some reason, I don't give that vulnerability to Luke Cage. I don't give it to Colossus either. I know Warren Ellis once did a sequence where somebody defeated Colossus by holding a gun up to Colossus's eye while he was armored and sort of said, like, I don't care what your armor's made out of. If you can see, then your eye must still be an eye, and if I shoot it, you will die. And I don't know how I feel about that. Also, like, Colossus, just blink. Just blink, dude. So there's that. And then, so the Fantastic Four. Sue Storm, I'm going to go with dead. Johnny Storm, possibly alive. Because, like, as long as he could sort of keep his heat up, they wouldn't be able to get close enough, and he'd be able to, like, shoot them with stuff and fly away. I mean, that's pretty good. Reed Richards, I don't see where his abilities give him much of an advantage. I mean, every once in a while you see that Reed can do that thing where if he goes like super limp and relaxes muscles, like Wolverine's claws won't cut him. I have really mixed feelings about that. I feel like they have to do that because otherwise it would be like a fight between a pair of scissors and a rubber band. And, oh man, can you imagine? I mean, people have kind of touched on how gross it would be to eviscerate Reed Richards. Like you'd wind up with like these 80-foot-long coils of rubbery elastic intestine just spewing. It's awesome. I'm such a 12-year-old boy sometimes. Yeah, and then the guts were everywhere, and he was knifing and stabbing. Ugh. Yeah. You know, feel like, well, I don't feel like I've covered a lot of topics today, but I feel like I've covered one topic fairly well. So, I don't know. I think we're gonna call that an episode for today. As always, this is. Thank you so much for listening to me just ramble on about this insane shit. Once again, I am Hank Pattison, and this has been The Life of the Mind.
Sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.